The source of information. Any business, every business, all business is driven by information. But what is information? Well, information is what we get when we process data. So data is raw, data comes in different forms, and when we process it, we get information. Information can come from virtually anywhere, and the type of information we need will change depending on the questions we're trying to answer. For example, we could get data from daily and weekly reports, which can be processed further into information. We can get data from employee feedbacks, which can be processed into information. Customer survey, as well as focus groups, incidents and accidents, financial reports, quality assurance, toolbox and other meetings, as well as from supplier feedback. So there's lots of different sources. The source of information that we should be looking at really depends, once again, on the question we're trying to answer, as in what it is that we want to know more about. The thing to consider with any source of information is reliability, as well as currency. Reliability, so how reliable is that source? Is there a high degree of human error or even someone lying? And in terms of currency, how recent is it? For example, if we're looking at data from 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, and trying to plan our business with that, chances are that data is going to be very misleading, which means the information we process is very misleading, which means the decisions we make may not be relevant anymore. So, sources of information, key to any and every business. Communication functions refer to the purpose of gestural, as in hand movement, vocal, as in speaking, verbal acts intended to convey information to others. Some communicative functions include commenting, requesting, protesting, directing attention, showing, as well as rejecting. The key things to consider when we talk about communication is knowledge management, decision-making, coordinating work activities, as well as fulfilling relatedness needs. So for example, knowledge management. Knowledge management's interesting. It's all the different bits of information that we have within an organization. Some information will be more useful than others. In terms of knowledge management, it's understanding what we need to keep for future projects and what we need to archive or even get rid of. And when we are destroying or getting rid of any information, we have to make sure we do it securely so that it doesn't get stolen. Decision-making. When it comes to communicating and decision-making, without communicating effectively, whatever it is we're trying to achieve from a goal perspective becomes infinitely more difficult. And that's where coordinating work activities really comes into it. Remember, strategies are long-term things we're trying to achieve. Operational are short-term things which allow us to achieve there. So when we're talking about communicating, it's all the work activities that gets communicated at the operational level that helps to achieve what we're trying to do at the strategic level. Communication elements. Some of the key components of verbal communication are sound, words, speaking, and language. Verbal communication involves the use of words or speech or auditory language to express emotions or thoughts or exchange information. Nonverbal communication involves the use of nonverbal cues such as facial expressions, eye or body movements, gestures, so many more things without speaking. For example, voice and sound, right? I mean, we can speak with a really high pitch or we can speak really deep. It changes the way someone perceives what we're trying to say. Pictures say 1,000 words, very, very true. Pictures can represent a lot. Logos, designs, you might not know exactly what they're trying to say, but by looking at it, you can go, ooh, that's a good sign, or ooh, I need to be more careful, whatever it might be. Body orientation. So if we're facing the people we speak, that's good. We're showing a lot of respect. If we turn away from them and don't really pay them attention, all of a sudden, our body orientation it makes the other person feel uncomfortable. Posture, so standing up straight or sitting up straight with attention compared to leaning back with your arms folded, it gives people a different impression. Gestures are really cool, and gestures are really important as well. When it comes to communicating, the verbal stuff, the things we say compared to our body language has a lot to play with this, and gestures are a really big part of it. Someone's super excited, their hands are moving everywhere, great. They might give you verbal cues like, hey, well done. That's pretty good. Facial and eye expressions. Our face is doing stuff, our eyes are doing stuff, even when we don't know that they're doing stuff. In the sense, they say a genuine smile, you can see it in someone's eyes. So if it's a fake smile, it's just going to be here. But a genuine smile, this part right here creases up slightly. And eyes and eye contact are really important. Now, there are some cultural aspects to this particular one as well. For example, in some cultures, eye contact is seen as something kind of rude in the sense, those you respect, you don't look them in the eye, you look a little bit down. So that is something to consider. Space is a really big one from a communication perspective. If someone stands right up against you, they come really close to you, you're in their private space, you're in their personal space. If you stand back, you give them space. The space is a really good way of communicating. Think about this, right? You're having a conversation with someone and they come right up to your face. That's quite intimidating. Intimidating meaning it feels like they're trying to, show their strength over you. Touching is also an interesting thing as well. You've got to be very careful with this one. Touching someone can communicate a lot of good as well as bad things, so got to be careful with this one. The way that I look at it is like, shaking hands. That involves body contact, a physical contact. It's a way of communicating. And smells is also a way of communicating. Smells can be both positive and negative. In the world of marketing, for example, auditory marketing is a really exciting space. It's been there for ages, but now people are looking into it a lot more. For example, if you walk into a cafe, what does a cafe smell like? You smell the coffee? What about when you walk into a 5-star hotel? What does that smell like? Now imagine you're not in a cafe and you're not in a 5-star hotel, but you're walking down the street and you smell the coffee beans. What do you think? In your head, you're thinking, maybe I'm a little bit tired. I wouldn't mind a coffee. And your brain switches. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate.
It all begins with the sender sending the message. The message gets encoded, then it gets sent through a message channel, which then gets decoded, and then finally reaches the receiver. The marketing communication process should be viewed as a two-way process. And some of the key definitions here: the sender, the originator of the message in the communication process. Encoding, conversion of the sender's ideas and thoughts into a message, usually words or signs. Transmission or sending of a message requires a channel. The channel is a medium of communication for transmitting a message or sending a message, such as voice, radio, or newspaper. Reception occurs when the message is detected by the receiver, and transmission may be hindered because of noise. Noise is anything that interferes with or distorts or even slows down the transmission of information.
Now, communication, there are a lot of cultural implications we have to be careful or be wary of, meaning we have to have an understanding of it. Cultures are created through communication. That is, communication is the means of human interaction through which cultural characteristics are formed. Whether customs, roles, rules, rituals, laws, or other patterns are created and shared, in the sense that culture are the residue of social communication. So what does that mean? Well, customs are something that we create. Roles, we create them. Rules, we create them. Rituals, we create them. But the culture itself, it is something which is distilled from all of these things. No one sits down and goes, hey, this is what our culture is, and they write it down and they go, okay, if you're Italian, this is our culture, this is what you must do. When somebody asks you, what is an Italian, this is what you have to say. It doesn't really work that way from a cultural perspective, which is why culture can vary so much in one country. Think about the country that you live in, or think about the country you are from. From north to south to east to west to the central region, does culture differ? Does culture change? Chances are yes. Your rituals might be the same. Your laws might be the same. Roles in society might be influenced by culture, or they might be the same throughout the entire country, but the culture itself might be slightly different. And that's a really cool thing, right? Because it's something which is distilled from all these things and becomes organic, it becomes natural. It's a social communication. When we talk about verbal differences, language has incredible verbal differences. In the sense, let's say you are from an English-speaking background. Now, even within English-speaking background, every country is slightly different. Australians, for example, tend to finish their sentences on a higher note. How's it going? How are you? How are you doing? Now, I just asked how you doing 3 different times, but they always end their sentence with a higher note, which is really interesting. So verbal differences, language has huge verbal differences. In terms of nonverbal differences, the things we're looking for is voice intonation, interpreting nonverbal meanings, the importance of verbal versus nonverbal, the concept of silence. Like, silence is really powerful, as well as conventional overlaps, where different things overlap into each other. For example, interpreting nonverbal meanings, like, let's say, hand gestures. If you're in India, someone goes like this, it means, would you like to eat? Are you hungry? Would you like to eat? If you're in Italy, the same meaning is very different. So just got to be mindful of that.